So now we're going to start working on the heel shaping. You should have your marker at peg 1 and one at peg 12. And we're only going to be working those pegs for the heel shaping. Okay? So we are going to E-wrap pegs 1 through 12. And we're going to knit those off. This is kind of an awkward way for me to hold this, so I'm doing the best I can so that you guys get a good visual. Okay, so we push those stitches down. Now, from here, we're going to E-wrap back. We're going to do that a total of 4 times, but we're going to skip the first peg each time, so that way that you have a nice border for later. So wrap your stitches back to your first marked peg. And we will knit those off. Okay, push all those stitches down, and we'll go back. We'll do the same thing we did, skipping that first peg. So E-wrap all the way back to your stitch marker. Knit those off. Okay. All right, so we did 1, we did 2, we did 3. So this will be our last one that we go back. Again, we're going to skip the first peg, E-wrap back to your first stitch. And we're going to knit those off. Okay, push those stitches down. Now at this point, we have done our 4 rows of the E-wrap. So from here, the yarn will be at peg 1, your working yarn, and we are going to take the loop off of peg 12 and move it to peg 11. We're going to E-wrap back, skipping that first peg. E-wrap back to where you have your 2 stitches on peg 11. And we're going to treat those 2 stitches as one. Okay, continue to knit off the rest of the stitches. Push those down. Okay, so now your working yarn is back here at peg 11. We are going to move the stitch from peg 1 to peg 2. Okay, and now we're going to E-wrap and knit those off. Again, we're going to skip that first peg. And this is easier if I had a yarn tensioner or guide on there, but I forgot to put it on at the beginning of the project. Okay, so we're going to knit those off. Sometimes you do have to do one loop at a time, and that's okay. Knit all those off. Okay. So now, your working yarn is back here again at peg 2. And so we are going to move the stitch from peg 11 and put it onto peg 10. And E-wrap and knit off again skipping the first peg as you come back. Knit those off. Push your stitches down. Our working yarn's at this end, so that means we're going to move another stitch. We're going to move the stitch from peg 2 to peg 3. And we're going to continue to do this back and forth until we have 3 empty pegs. So now we E-wrap back and knit those off. And the reason why I'm kind of lifting that is just because that bottom stitch is a little too close. I don't want to snag it as I'm lifting that bottom stitch over the top. Okay. So we're going to push all those down again. And at this point, we're going to be moving the stitch from peg 10 onto peg 9. And again, we'll E-wrap back, skipping that first peg, and knit those off. Okay, so we have 3 empty pegs on this side. We need to do one more decrease on this side. So we're going to move the stitch from peg 3 onto peg 4. And sometimes you have to play around with it to get the stitch on there, but that's okay. Okay, so now we're going to E-wrap back and knit those off. Again, skipping the first one. And so at this point, what you're left with is 3 empty pegs on both sides and 6 pegs with stitches in the middle. Now this is what it looks like on the inside. So if you have anything similar to that, you are on the right track. And what we do from here is that we're going to go here on the inside and we're going to count. Now, let me get this a little closer so you can see this. Okay. We have 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. That is why we skipped those stitches during the wrap, so that way they'd be easier to see to pick them up. So again, you have 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. We're going to take that loop right here from number 5, and we're going to put it on to the peg, your ending peg of your round. Then you're just going to pick up your other stitches. Sometimes you have to play around with it to actually pick the stitch up, because you know you don't want to split the yarn. And we're just going to put those stitches back onto the peg. Okay? So you will fill those stitches back up, or excuse me, the empty pegs back up. So you'll have one now on each of your empty pegs, plus you'll have one extra over here. Now we're going to do the same thing on the opposite side. Okay, so now we're going to do the same thing on the opposite side. You count your 5 stitches. Sometimes you may have to turn it to see. You have 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. So we're going to take the stitch from 5 and we're going to put it onto this peg right here. So that it actually is peg number 13 in your round. Okay? Then you just pick up the other empty stitches like we did on the other side to fill up those pegs. Kind of like what you would do if you were doing a seam in a hat or on a cuff of a sock. Okay, so at this point you should have put all the bind off stitches back onto the 3 empty pegs, the 1 extra stitch on the last peg of the round, and the 1 extra stitch on peg 13. So at this point your working yarn is at peg number 4. You're going to E-wrap and knit those off. When you get to your last peg, treat those 2 stitches as one. And then you will be done with your heel shaping.